With the offensive line at West Virginia struggling this year, it has many fans talking about what's to come for current offensive line coach Jack Bicknell Jr. Is it too early to start talking about who the next O-line coach could be at West Virginia? What the heck? Let's do it. What is up, and welcome into this episode of Couz's Corner, your home for top shelf college sports news and analysis surrounding the West Virginia Mountaineers and the Big 12. This is where you get objective analysis from a fan's point of view. Thanks for joining the show. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Some people may think it's too early to start doing a video about quote unquote firing a coach, but in this case, you would not be firing a coach because Jack Bicknell Jr.'s contract only goes for one season. So is it possible that West Virginia doesn't renew his contract for 2026 after the offensive line has struggled so much this year? And not even the fact that they've struggled, but the fact that they really haven't even gotten better. And here we are getting ready to go into the 8th game of the season. The offensive line has not shown signs of improvement, at least from a fan's view as we watch the games on Saturdays. And even when you look at the PFF grades, you don't really see a ton of improvement on that offensive line. So it's fair to question, should and will there be a change made at offensive line coach in the offseason? So I decided to go ahead and give you 6 names to consider for the job. Most of them are obvious ones, but we're going to go look at a little bit at each coach's resume. The first one we're going to talk about is no big surprise, but it's former West Virginia tight ends coach Herb Hand. He is currently the offensive line coach at Florida State under Mike Norvell, has been there one season. Before that, he was the offensive line coach at UCF under Gus Malzahn. Now, Herb Hand is a very experienced coach. He was actually at West Virginia under Coach Rod from 2001 to 2006, which makes this an intriguing name because he will know Rich Rod's system and what Rich Rod expects. Now, he wasn't the O-line coach necessarily, but he was coaching tight ends and was the recruiting coordinator. So he also has experience recruiting. He's also spent time coaching offensive line at Tulsa. He has spent time at schools like Vanderbilt, Penn State, Auburn, Texas, and I mentioned USF and Florida State. He has also, not only has he been an offensive line coach, he's also served offensive coordinator or co-offensive coordinator roles at both Tulsa and at Texas. And I mentioned he's coached at Penn State. He was at Penn State under recently fired James Franklin. And he coached the offensive line that blocked for a running back you all may not recognize, and his name is Saquon Barkley. That's right. He was coaching the offensive line at Penn State in 2015 when Saquon Barkley ran for 1,700 yards. He's had 2 of his lines have been semifinalists for the Joe Moore Award at Auburn in both 2016 and 2017. He's coached a ton of all-conference caliber players. He's put guys in the NFL. He is a very experienced coach, and he's only 57, so he has probably has a lot of years left in the tank. And with the coaching situation at Florida State, it's possible he may be looking for a job at the end of the season anyway, if Mike Norvell ends up getting fired from the Seminoles. So Herb Hand is a coach to consider. The second one I want to talk about is another name that a lot of West Virginia fans recognize, and it's one that may be the most popular pick, or at least second most popular pick, and that's Garen Justice, the current assistant head coach, co-offensive coordinator, and offensive line coach at SMU. When you look at Garen Justice's resume, he actually played for Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia, was a tackle on the West Virginia team for 4 years while Rich Rod was the coach there. He has built a sturdy resume over his career as a coach. I mentioned his time at offensive line coach. Before going to SMU, he was with Coach Rhett Lashley at Miami, where they coached a very good offensive line and a very good offense. He's coached at Florida State as a GA, where he started his coaching career. He then became a position coach and eventually the head coach at Concord, right down the road from where I live here in southern West Virginia. Actually led Concord as their head coach, actually led them to the Division II national semifinals one year. Had a very good record there. He's also spent time at offensive line coach at FAU and UNLV before going to Miami and then SMU. So he's a veteran coach. He's been in leadership positions as both an offensive coordinator and a head coach at some of his stops. And he's coached at every level, Division II, Group of 6, and Power 4. Now, again, why does he fit West Virginia? Well, he would know what Coach Rod expects. He played for Coach Rod. He knows what it's like to play offensive line in Coach Rod's system. He'll know the blocking techniques. He'll know what Rich Rod expects from a tempo standpoint, from a culture standpoint. He's from West Virginia. He's a West Virginia guy from Mingo County, I believe. So he knows it. He knows it. He's lived it. He's breathed it. Now, what are some cons? Might be hard to pull him away from SMU unless Rhett Lashley ends up taking one of the current open jobs that are out there right now and leaves SMU, and maybe Garen just doesn't want to go with him. Maybe he decides he wants to come back home and coach for Coach Rod. I'm not sure he leaves at SMU. Now, SMU, I don't know what he's getting paid there. They are a private school. They don't necessarily release their salary information. But from everything I've heard, he's making a pretty large sum of money. If he's the assistant head coach, he's probably making more than what West Virginia normally pays their offensive line coach. So you might have to open the bag for him to come. That would be another con. Would it be worth it? I think you at least need to make the phone call, in my opinion. The third coach I want to talk about is probably the most common one that most West Virginia fans want, and that is Rick Trickett. He is the current offensive line coach at Jacksonville State, coaching alongside one of his younger sons, Clint Trickett, who is a former West Virginia quarterback who's currently the offensive coordinator at Jacksonville State. But we all know Rick Trickett's background. He's been an assistant coach or a coach in some capacity in college football since the 70s and 80s. He coached with Rich Rod at West Virginia. He was at Florida State under Jimbo Fisher for a while, a long time actually, and even Bobby Bowden. He coached at Glenville State for a while. And he's been at Jacksonville State with Coach Rod, and he remained there even after Coach Rod came to West Virginia. He actually got offered the job at West Virginia but turned it down because he did not want to coach at the Power 4 level at this stage of his career. I think he's in his late 70s at this point. That is one of the cons of bringing Rick Trickett to Morgantown. Who knows how much longer he's going to coach? And he may not be happy coaching at the Power 4 level. He said he doesn't want to coach guys who are getting paid more money than him. Now, I'm paraphrasing that, but that's what he said in an interview, I think, with either three guys before the game or maybe the Sportsline show. Either way, that's what he said. So apparently he doesn't want the job. Now, is it possible he wanted to stay at Jacksonville State and coach beside Clint? That's possible too. So does it mean maybe you have to offer Clint a job on the staff to also get Rick Trickett in town? Do you do it? How much would you have to pay him? All of that's a question, but in my opinion, you at least call him again in the offseason and say, hey, have you rethought your decision? Have you changed your mind? Would you be interested in coming to West Virginia and help us get this program back to where we once had it back in the early 2000s? It might be an enticing phone call to make, especially after he sees where his beloved program that he spent a big chunk of his career at, where they are today. Maybe it's something he considers. But again, if you're Coach Rod, you at least make that phone call. Now, we're halfway through. I have 3 more to go. I do want to take time out to give a quick shout out to our channel sponsors. I'll be right back. Your season, your shot. The NFL season is rolling, and every touchdown can bring you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. From first touchdown scorer to anytime TD props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, score over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code COUZ. That's code COUZ to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet. Plus, over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday ticket/terms. Limited time offer. All right, thank you for letting me get through the housekeeping and pay the bills. Let's go ahead and get back to our list. Number 4 on my list. Less familiar name to West Virginia fans, but fans who follow it closely recognizes it. Derek Dressler, current assistant offensive line coach at WVU. He's the assistant to Jack Bicknell Jr. He came over with Rich Rod from Jacksonville State. Is he ready to take on the primary offensive line coaching role? This would be the least expensive option, potentially. If Jack Bicknell's contract expires, you give Derek Dressler a pay bump. Maybe you don't replace his position, so you don't have to pay as many coaches, and he may not even demand as high a salary. I think Jack Bicknell's making about $450,000 a year. Maybe you only have to pay Derek Dressler $250,000 a year, just because it's his first stint as an offensive line coach. It saves you a couple $100,000 you can put towards paying players, or at least maybe you bring in an assistant coach under him for $50,000, and then you have $200 or $150,000 to pay players, whatever. You see where I'm going with that. And if the players respect, I don't know anything about Derek Dressler. I don't know how well liked is he in the locker room by the players. If it makes it easier to recruit, if he's a good recruiter, maybe you keep him around. He did play his college ball in the state of West Virginia at the aforementioned Concord University. He's also spent time at other smaller colleges in the region. So he may have some contacts and some relationships in this region of the country where he could recruit. And again, not sure how impactful he's been in the recruiting process thus far, but would just promoting him to your full-time offensive line coach be the right way to go? I mentioned he's been an assistant at Jacksonville State. He's also coached at a lot of other programs. You'd get continuity, low friction, transition, strong. I mentioned the strong local recruiting ties. Familiarity with current players. Maybe some of them are more prone to hang around if you keep some continuity there, like your Nick Crays and your Landon Livingstons and the guys you may want to keep. But you're getting a coach who has no experience as a primary O-line coach at the Power 4 level. Could be perceived as a developmental or continuity hire rather than a major upgrade. Would that hurt recruiting? That's something that Coach Rod and his staff would have to contend with. My opinion, if that's the move, if that's the route they went, I'm not sure the fan base would like it. I think they would rather them go out after the offensive line we saw this year. I think they want to go out and get a proven offensive line coach. At least I think that's what the fan base would want. Now, the next name on the list, again, a familiar name to Mountaineer fans because he was the offensive line coach at West Virginia just one season ago and was there the entire time, I believe, at least the entire time, under Neil Brown. That is Matt Moore. Now, when Matt Moore left West Virginia after Neil Brown's departure, don't think he left on the greatest of terms. He put out a tweet basically taking a shot at the hard edge mantra of Coach Rodriguez, talking about how his O-lines have been, quote, hard edge. So it sounds to me like maybe he and Coach Rod weren't on the same page. Not sure. I hate to make too many assumptions, but for him to put out that tweet and make a point to do that, someone who doesn't really put out a ton of tweets, I thought that spoke volumes. So the chances of Matt Moore coming back are slim to none. But is it a call you make? Do you say, hey, Matt, I made a mistake. I should have retained you as the offensive line coach. I know we didn't get off on the right foot. Maybe you try to sit down and have that conversation. And, oh, by the way, if you do get Matt Moore, he may bring Kyle Altuner back with him. Kyle Altuner was a starting center at Virginia Tech this year. His future is very bright. He's only a redshirt freshman, starting at the Power 4 level at center. It's tough to do. He had been upgraded to a 4-star recruit after committing to West Virginia, and then decided to leave after Neil Brown got fired, and he spent the 2024 season on the shelf with a broken leg, I believe it was, some sort of lower body injury. And maybe there are some other offensive linemen who either decommitted from West Virginia or maybe transferred out, some younger guys who might come back, help you build that room up. We've all seen what Matt Moore can do. How many guys has he put in the NFL? 3 that I know of, maybe more. And that's just in recent memory. Wyatt Milam, Zach Frazier, Doug Nestor. Can't remember if he was part of Colton McKivitz, on part of the staff when Colton McKivitz was at West Virginia or not, but he may have even coached him as well. Not to mention the experience he has at other schools like Texas Tech and other places. Troy, Middle Tennessee State, Louisiana Tech. Coached multiple All-Americans and high-level draft prospects. Was a Burroughs Award nominee in 2023 for top assistant coach. His deep knowledge of the West Virginia culture and roster, at least a few of them. Strong track record developing top linemen, like I mentioned. Instant trust with the players. He's a player's coach. I mean, you saw how many guys left to follow him to Virginia Tech. That shows you how admired he was by those players. Virginia Tech has already fired their head coach, so Matt Moore is likely going to be looking for a job in the offseason anyway. Again, very, very slim to zero chance Matt Moore comes back to West Virginia because I don't think he and Rich Rod are fits together. But maybe you at least sit down and have that conversation and do the interview. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? Now, the last name on the list is one that I had not thought of, but I think it was our friend Jeff Ruff over on Twitter who shared this out the other day on Twitter, and I loved the idea. If it wasn't Jeff Ruff, correct me in the comments, let me know who it was. And by the way, speaking of comments, let me know in the comments, who would you like to see West Virginia? A, would you like to see them move on from Jack Bicknell Jr. once his contract expires? And B, if they do, who would you like to see them hire in his place? But the last one I'm going to talk about, you already see it on the screen for those watching, but it's Sam Pittman, former head coach at Arkansas. And I say former because he's already been fired. But before he became the head coach at Arkansas, he spent a lot of years as an assistant coach, primarily coaching offensive linemen. He was Arkansas head coach from 2020 to 2024. Before becoming head coach, he was one of the most respected O-line coaches in the nation with major SEC experience. Not only was he the O-line coach at Arkansas from 2013 to 2015, he also had stops at Georgia, where he was the O-line coach from 2016 to 2019. They made it a national championship game while he was there. He's coached at Tennessee, Oklahoma, Missouri, North Carolina, Northern Illinois. Widely regarded as one of the best recruiters and developers of offensive linemen in the country. Built a dominant Georgia offensive line that fueled their rise under Kirby Smart. Helped Georgia reach I mentioned the national title game he helped them reach in 2017. Has mentored multiple first-round draft picks like Isaiah Wynn and Andrew Thomas, known for elite recruiting relationships and player-first coaching style. It would bring instant credibility to the position, to the offensive line room. SEC recruiting reach. He could recruit the southeastern part of the country based on his experience. He would bring a blue-collar offensive line mentality that matches the identity of West Virginia University. And he could stabilize the program's trenches and mentor young assistants like Derek Dressler if he's not ready to take over a role himself. Another year under a coach like Sam Pittman will do him a ton of good. Now, the cons, he would probably want a hefty salary, but maybe not. He's probably still getting paid a pretty large lump sum from Arkansas for his buyout. So maybe he wouldn't have to pay him a ton of money. Maybe he would rather have a coordinator position or another head coaching position somewhere. We don't know what his goals are moving forward. But at the end of the day, you have to at least, just like I've said with all these other guys, you have to at least make the phone call to Sam Pittman. And of all the names I just mentioned, this is my first choice. My first choice. If you can afford to pay him, he's probably going to demand, like I said, you might have to pay him $600,000-700,000 a year. I'm not sure. But again, I'm not sure what his buyout is from Arkansas either. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe you get him on the cheap for a year or two. But either way, I think Sam Pittman would be an elite get as offensive line coach at West Virginia. I'm not sure how familiar he is with Rich Rod's offensive system. Someone who knows that can let me know in the comments, but I don't think it matters. He knows enough about ball. He would be able to coach it, in my opinion. And the recruiting prowess he would bring would far outweigh that, in my opinion. I think Sam Pittman is somebody you have to at least, again, he might consider it too big of a step down to even attempt it. But I think you at least make the phone call. And he would be my first choice and the first call I'd make in the offseason if I'm Rich Rodriguez, just to gauge his interest. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Of the list I just mentioned, who's your number one choice? And let me know who's the least, who would be the most likely to take the job or to get the job and the least likely. And let me know your reasoning in the comments. Want to take a minute to give a shout out to the random VIP members of this episode. You can become a VIP member by hitting the join button below or hitting the join button over in my channel homepage right beside my profile photo. The random shout outs of today are Freedom, Browns and Beers, Crispy O_O, CEO of the Sofa, and Tanner Tracks Premier. Thank you all for supporting what I do here on the channel and helping me keep the lights on. Also want to give a shout out to my other sponsor, Appalachia Digital, the ones who designed the website over at wvsportschat.com. If you need them to design a site for you, they can do that. If you need them to help you upgrade your site, they can do that. Just go to appalachiadigital.com/Couz and let them know Couz sent you. Want to remind you that you can like this video by hitting the thumbs up button. You can subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. You can hit the hype button below. It's right between the download and thanks button on your mobile device. Last but not least, I want to remind you about the opportunity that you have to call in and leave me your voicemails. You can call 304-712-9347. You can leave me a rant. You can drop me a question, and I will address it. I will address the best ones. If I get enough calls, I will address the best ones on a show. Again, call 304-712-9347. Leave me your name and where you're calling from, and I will try my best to address your comment or question on a show, probably either later this week or early next week. You can rant about the current state of the West Virginia program. You can talk about anything related to college sports that you want, basketball, football, whatever. Let me know. So just make the call, 304-712-9347. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Couz's Corner. I appreciate all the support. Thank you for, I'm right on the cusp of 10,000 subscribers. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Hope the rest of your day's top shelf. God bless you, and Q Country Roads.